Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. A large percentage of the population is underemployed but wants to be part of the workforce. I'm talking about people who have disabilities of all kinds. Although in some parts of the world, there are discrimination laws aimed to protect them, many are overlooked even though they would be perfectly qualified to be part of the workforce they are trying to enter. What can be done? I know just the guy to ask, and you'll get to hear from him shortly. Dr. Gil Winch is an organizational consultant and the founder of CY, an outsourcing services call center and for-profit business staffed and managed primarily by previously unemployed, severely disabled people and other marginalized populations. He is also the author of a great new book called Winning with Underdogs, due in September. So listen in as Gil and I talk about winning with underdogs by hiring people who might be overlooked but shouldn't be. Dr. Gil Winch, who has asked me to call him Gil, welcome to Super Psyched.
Thank you for having me, Adam.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And I've been blown away by the vision and the work that you've decided to carry out on behalf of a group in the population who's historically been somewhat voiceless. And here you've shown up and decided that there is an entire sector of the population who is disempowered, who needs to work. And that would be the people with any form of disability. And I'm wondering if you could share with us the importance of work itself with regard to one's identity. Why is it that we need to work?
Actually, it's a combination. We need to work and we need to be not out of work. And working gives you stuff and being out of work takes away stuff. And the combination is really harsh. We need to be at work because we all need to feel needed. We like the feeling of being industrious. We like to feel we have accomplished things. We've gained ground. We like to feel that we've put our time to good use. And we like to improve our standard of living. And in order to provide for yourself and your loved ones, and in order to get many, many psychological benefits, which you don't get if you just win the lottery and sit at home with the money, you'll get the money, but you're not going to get any of the psychological benefits. And actually, I've never looked, but I'm sure that people who won the lottery and never went to work again are pretty miserable. We need to feel that there's somebody who needs us, and there's somebody who wants our services, and there's somebody who we can help doing something. And if nobody needs us, and if nobody wants us, and if nobody needs our services, it's very, very difficult to maintain over time feelings of self-empowerment and self-worth, and even to build any kind of self-identity, because around what? And on the other hand, when everybody gets up in the morning and leaves the house and goes somewhere, and day after day, you're not going anywhere. Nobody wants you anywhere. Nobody seems to need you anywhere. It doesn't really matter what the reasons are, if they're physical, emotional, circumstantial. But if those are the circumstances, I would guess that 90+% of people will start feeling some kind of deterioration in all sorts of things you don't want to feel deterioration in, like self-esteem and self-worth, and even what is my real identity, and am I really not needed by anyone? And when this goes on day after day after day, the accumulative effect of it is devastating to people's personality. Now, women who give birth and stay home a bit longer sometimes can feel that drop in self-confidence because they stay home like for a year or something. So now I'm not as confident, and they'll ask for less pay. And so imagine if that's a whole lifetime, if that your whole life you've never been part of. It's so difficult to keep on telling yourself, no, but I'm like everybody else. Yeah, but they don't want me to be anybody else. Everybody else goes places I don't go.
And I know you and I are both big fans of dogs, and even dogs need to feel needed, like they have a purpose, a job. I was told by my trainer, give your dog a job. And I'm thinking just about how deeply embedded and primal it is for us as humans. And I often hear from the elderly that one of the things they miss the most is feeling needed, feeling like they are being useful. And I'm just thinking about what a gift you're giving people, that most basic need of human dignity, to feel like they're needed, that they have a purpose. And I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit about how you even got the idea, like this would be an important thing to carry out, and then actually putting the rubber to the road and actually doing it.
Well, it's totally by chance. I think that this thing came forward. I was 40. I decided I want to do something social. But we're a regular family. It couldn't be having an impact. And I wanted to have a big impact by giving or by donating. I just don't have enough to donate to make any kind of like serious impact. I knew it had to be something by doing. Plus, I think there's such a huge, huge difference in the benefits you get from giving a check or sweating. And when you give a check, it's nice, warm, fuzzy feeling for, oh, look, it's gone already. And when you go somewhere and you sweat and you put in invested effort in moving things forward, and you can actually see the people you're investing in, the benefits that the giver receives are like so much bigger than the very, I call it superficial giving of just writing a check.
It's almost like the joy you get from gardening, seeing something grow and thinking, wow, I had it.
Yes. But it's only something, it's being industrious, it's creating, it's yeah. So I knew I need to find something that I can have a serious impact on by doing and not by giving. And 2 or 3 weeks after I was looking around, I met a neighbor who's paraplegic, and he was a pilot in a helicopter, didn't land well, and he became fully paraplegic. And he's always with this big guy who's helped him do his daily routine and live, because he can only move one hand just a bit to control a chair and a car because he was a pilot, but that's it. But he's really busy, and he built this wonderful foundation, and he's been extremely busy. And we met, we know each other, we're friends. And he said, by the way, do you know that not people like me, generally disabled people, I'm like seriously disabled, but disabled people all around the world pretty much out of a job. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, regular disabled people, more than 50% aren't working. And the severely disabled, none of them are working. And I said, what do you mean? All over the world? Like nowhere? And he said, nowhere. I went home and I was skeptical because doesn't sound right. Because when you think who comprises the group of the severely disabled, which are, by the way, around 5% of the global population, doesn't matter what the paper.
In general, 1 out of 20 of us will be disabled. A
third of them are people with emotional disabilities. And you know this as well as I, that 3/4 of them are compliant with their medication and they're stable. You wouldn't necessarily know that they have any kind of a problem. What reason could there be for them to be totally out of work? It's no good reason. Can't see a good reason.
Sure.
People in a wheelchair. All right, they're in a wheelchair, so you don't have to buy them a chair. But other than that, why are they out of work? I found out that 80% of the people who have or are legally blind have sight left, and they can function on a computer with pretty much not that very expensive technologies, but they're all out of work. So when I started looking at who comprises this group of the severely disabled and why are they unemployed, it didn't seem to be because of the disabilities, because we're not doing the industrial revolution anymore, right? Everybody's not either agriculture or you're doing the big sweatshops or building Fords like in a line. We're not doing that. Most people, what do they do at home? They're screens and telephones, right? Yep. When they're at home. And what do most of us do at work? I mean, we do screens and telephones. So there's doesn't seem to be any good reason, any given reason that I could see that all over the world, the severely disabled are out of a job, which got me excited basically, because I thought, wait a minute, if it's not their disabilities that keeps them out of a job and it's worldwide, maybe it's something that I could address, because it doesn't see, I don't know how to address disabilities, but I don't know how to fix that. But if it's not the disabilities keeping them out of the job, and it didn't seem to be, apparently there are other reasons. If I can find out what they are and maybe fix them, well, that would be amazing. I mean, the impact, the global impact would be huge. Mind-boggling.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
5% of the population, boy, I mean, if you think about that, that's basically 350 million people across the planet now. 350 to 400 million people.
Right.
Massive.
There's another thing that's very important to say. It's not that we're taking the weakest amongst us, at least medically, physically, or emotionally, and keeping them out of the workplace. That's not all we're doing as a society. What we're doing is we're taking the weakest amongst us and we're imposing upon them two different, unnecessary, horrific calamities. One, we're turning them into the most poor people around because disability pensions are even less than minimum wage unless you're Swiss and born with a disability. Otherwise, it's like a bad joke. Well, you're disabled, but that's not the worst of your problems because now you're going to be horrifically poor. And that isn't the worst of your problems either, because what we're going to do once you're disabled and horrifically poor is we're going to totally isolate you socially. We're going to lock you in the prison of your home because you'll have nowhere to go. And the funny thing is, we'll fix a few parking spaces. So if you do manage to get out, you'll be able to park a car, which we have no idea with what money you'll buy. Still, it's not only that you're disabled, now you're poor and you're totally socially isolated. And we've done that to our weakest link. Instead of strengthening it, we've made it as weak as you could imagine. And that's just cruel.
So many reasons I love your work, one of which is I've taken great pleasure in listening to some of the things that you've had to say, and you are popping all types of untruths. One of which is that if somebody's going to be interviewed, you have to give them a hard interview. You have to see them at their worst and they're most stressed out. And you're saying, don't do that. We will get into that, I'm sure. But I'm wondering, what are some other misconceptions that people may have about hiring the disabled that you found to be entirely false?
All of them. I'm not exaggerating. Apparently, and I say this with quite a bit of confidence, most governments operate on the following presumptions. At least they operate. I don't know if they believe them, but that's how they operate. If a disabled guy is out of work, then maybe they're missing some kind of a adjustment, like a ramp or an accommodation or like a software, something, right? So we'll provide that. But if they don't need it or we've provided it and they're still out of work, then maybe they lack opportunity. So let's try and get them a couple of opportunities. But if we've given them a couple of opportunities and they don't need any adjustments and they're still out of work, apparently they lack ability. So there's no point in investing in them anymore because we've given them what they need. It's not working. So obviously it's them, not us. Let's move along then. And I decided that that can't be true. That can't be the real reasons. And I really need to find out what the real reasons people with disabilities worldwide are out of work. And so I started interviewing people with severe disabilities and I started mapping all the different reasons I heard. And they all seemed to cluster into three groups. None of them were the above things that governments presume. Those weren't the reasons people with disabilities were out of work. And by the way, when I said I interviewed about 100, it's around 15,000 20 years later.
Wow. So and you were able to actually collate three different groups of reasons.
Yeah. And they all go to those three different groups of reasons. Pretty much anyone that doesn't fall into those three groups, basically. First of all, the interesting thing is you ask yourself, how many governments or people or institutes or institutions have created such a map?
I'm guessing zero, yeah.
None. That's wow, because I was trying to see if I could save myself, but couldn't find any such a map.
Yeah, you had to invent the wheel.
Yes, for the whole thing. And it started out there. And we found that the basic truths people believe, that the reasons people are out of a job, even the disabled people themselves, by the way, a lot of them say, I just don't have ability. But they're different reasons entirely. They're really good ones, but they're all fixable, is the thing.
And what's so sad, what you just said was basically they come to believe it themselves that they don't have the ability when that's patently untrue. They do.
They buy into it deeply. And I'll even explain why, because
so tragic.
The minute you get a disability pension, in order to get it, you basically have to convince a bunch of social workers, doctors, people whose profession it is to see if you're malingering. You have to convince them that it doesn't matter what your actual disability is, that you have no ability. Because if you don't convince them, you're not going to get a disability pension. And that's your only way to live, basically, to buy some food. So you have to be very passionate about your inability to work. And in order for that to work, you need to adopt that self-identity in order to be convincing. I don't have the capacity to start a job and learn stuff and make decisions. And basically, everything you need in order to succeed at work, you need to do the opposite in order to get a pension. So it's like every month of disability pensions, which are needed, I'm for them. But every month of disability pensions, it's similar to like an intensive month of training of how to never work. And then you get a job offer. How are you supposed to change your self-identity from inability to ability in 24 hours just because you got a job offer.
How do you midwife a person whose self-concept is, I lack ability? And obviously the answer is not 24 hours, I can tell. But can you tell me, how do you train somebody to actually recognize that they do have abilities and to disabuse them of the beliefs that they previously held so strongly due to the gaslighting, it sounds like, of society itself in a sense?
Yeah. First of all, it's a gradual process. Second of all, it doesn't always work, at least not fully, but it doesn't always work. I mean, every month there are people we don't succeed with. We think they actually have the potential and we can't get them to bring it. So we give them more than a month, but we often fail. But 2/3 of the times we don't fail. And think of those 350 million people, 2/3 is a lot.
That is a lot.
Over 200 million people.
Well over 200 million.
I think they can join the workplace, regular productivity, because otherwise you really need foundations. I'm talking success means regular productivity for regular wages. And in order to get there, you need, first of all, to realize that's the problem, that it's an emotional problem. And it's very confusing because he might just, quotation mark,
quotes, air quotes,
or just, quotation mark, sitting in a wheelchair. Why does he have emotional problems? And we keep on explaining it's not your disability, it's the fact that you're disabled, which is screwing you over and always has, because it's keeping you aside. It's keeping you out of work. It doesn't matter the specific reason. Society has decided that once you're disabled, you ain't joining.
Sure. And yet I'm still fascinated by this idea that we've all had inculcated into us some form of bad message, like somebody who actually could be pretty good at math is told, you're not a math person, or somebody who could get really good at sports should be told, you have no physical ability. And I'm just wondering, how do you help them push through this idea and to remove these calcified beliefs that have accumulated over time?
So I know I haven't answered it yet, and I promise to.
Okay,
I need to interject something in the middle. It'll make the answer clearer.
Okay.
We try to promote something we call reserved employment for the opportunity deprived. And I'll explain what I mean. It's just like disability parking, reserved parking for the disabled people. The concept there is accepted worldwide. And the concept is that some people have less options than we have. And if they can't park close by, they won't get into the venue. They won't be able to make it to the venue. So we save some of the best spots, not all of them, but for them, the people who don't have other options. And if we didn't, they wouldn't be able to get in. And the rest of us have other options. So we'll do a bit of walking in the rain.
As in we can walk, for sure.
Everybody gets that. And if we see someone without a disability sign parking in such a place, we even get upset. Agreed? So let's take the same concept for employment. I contend that nearly any kind of person with any kind of disability, there are certain jobs that they will be able to do with regular productivity. But if we don't keep those jobs, some of them, for them, they will forever be out of work. And I'll just give a few simple examples, which is there's so many people with hearing disabilities and they're nearly all out of work. They can't function on phones. Their communication is problematic for people who don't speak sign language. Every different country in the world has a different sign language. An American can't talk to an English guy or an Australian guy. So really, they're really like secluded in their own little community. Nobody else speaks the sign language. But so many companies have chat services nowadays.
For sure.
Which that could be a very good entrance position for so many people with severe hearing disabilities. You can help them get their confidence back and learn about the workplace and how to turn up and all those things, which no one's keeping those jobs for them. People with cognitive disabilities who like minimal brain dysfunction or lowered cognition, a lot of them can clean tables, make up rooms, do the dishes as well as anybody else. And I know one coffee shop chain that actually decided that for those jobs, the piccolo jobs they're called, they're going to hire people with cognitive disabilities because they work, they smile, they're happy to do it. They do it as well as everybody else. So they'll reserve those jobs for them because they don't have that many other options, but that's something they can do for regular productivity and regular pay. There are numerous coffee shop chains in the world, but only one of them has decided to reserve those jobs. So you can look at nearly any kind of disability you want, and you can find quite a few jobs that that kind of person or that kind of disability can do as well as anybody else. They have less opportunities, so let's reserve some of those employment spots to people who need them because they have less opportunities.
Right.
Reserved employment for the opportunity deprived. And it's such a simple concept. And when I go back to how we help people attain regular productivity, I don't want people imagining that we've taken the paraplegic guy and turned them into an acrobat. That's not what it is.
You're not doing the
We
impossible.
found a job that they can do where their disability doesn't get in the way.
Sure.
And there are quite a few. It's just a question of goodwill.
It's so fantastic. And certainly this has humanitarian elements to it in that you're becoming a voice for the voiceless. But there is a business case you've even stated. So I'm just wondering, can you share a little bit about the business case that could make an employer really excited about hiring?
So there are an awful lot of good reasons for employers to hire people with disabilities. However, there's a sort of paradox going on over there, which I'll get to in a sec to explain why it just doesn't happen. But the good reasons are this. A few years ago, maybe 40% of consumers in the world defined themselves as value-based consumers. And insofar as, when the internet came out, we were using it to see what's better, Nike or Adidas, or compare brands, the products of various brands. But now about 40% of the world, a few years back, was using the internet to compare the value of different brands and buy according to the value of the brand. So if Nike was using kids in sweatshops in Asia, so I'm not going to buy Nike, I'll buy one of the other brands.
Right. Yeah.
That was 40% of the world. And within 3 years, it's past 60%. In other words, brands beware. If
So you're
you
saying
don't
consumers
really-
are voting with their conscience?
Yes, and more of them. And if you eventually won't really do what you're supposed to do as employers, the diversity thing, which I'll get into later, then we will punish you with our custom.
Wow.
And that 40 to 60, that's in 3 years. And it's not in America, it's worldwide. So that's just one of, I would say, 30 to 40 data points, all pointing to the same place. You need to do this. And I'll just give it for a few more. It's obvious. We're both psychologists. I didn't study economics or business. But common sense wise, any economy which has everybody working in it would be a stronger economy than an economy that has only 90% of the people working in it because 10% are disabled, 5% severely disabled, 10% generally disabled, or 15, depends who's counting. So any economy that includes them in it is a stronger economy. That's for all of us. There's a staggering amount, and I'll probably get it wrong. I'll tell you what it is in Israel. It's $5 billion in Israel if all the disabled a year, if all the disabled people would be working. But I think in America, it's around $100 billion.
That would go back into the economy, you're saying?
Yes. And give you guys, for instance, any kind of decent healthcare. And that's also doing the right thing. You get that by doing the right thing.
It's the best of both worlds. I mean, that you're doing the right thing and there's a business case. I mean,
It really is a win-win-win. I'll tell you in a second why it's not going to happen, or why it's not going to happen by itself. But it really is a win-win-win. There's no downside at all. The engagement of current employees rises, and all sorts of brands that don't have an inherent social purpose, like all the financial brands, all of a sudden, if they take this upon themselves loudly and they do it, so all of a sudden they have a social purpose. And most of the new people looking for work nowadays, about 83 to 84% of them state that the social purpose when they're looking for work is very, very important for them.
Huge. And you and I both know
So
that loneliness is such a...
You're going to be hiring less if you don't do it. Everybody will suffer more if you don't do it. You will be earning more if you do it because the engagement of the whole company goes up. And when you look at actual companies that do more as opposed to companies that do less, in that regard, the companies that do more earn more, they're more productive, they have more sales, they have more profit. There's so many points pointing to the same place. So then you should ask yourself, so why isn't it happening? Why is there nowhere in the world where this seems to be the norm? Why aren't there CEOs out there, C-suite people saying, yeah, no, we got to do this. Seriously, do it. Because you can't tell me that Google doesn't have enough brain power to figure it out, right?
Right.
I mean, they don't lack IQ.
No,
why is it not happening? And the explanation to that in my mind, or my explanation to that is upsetting.
What is it?
When someone starts out as a regular employee, the future CEO, to get from the regular employee to the CEO of the whole company spot takes emotional conditioning. You have to put up along the way with so much political, disgusting, cold, stabbing, infighting, backstabbing, whatever.
Horrible politics.
That unless you learn how to develop seriously thick skin, you're not going to make it. That same thick skin doesn't only come on the hands, it comes across the eyes. It impinges your ability to be truly empathic with the rank and file. And you say to yourself, I made it here with no pampering, without all those, let's be nice, let's be caring, let's be this, because this is business, right? So if I made it, others can make it.
Sure.
So don't talk to me about all those things. I can't see it. I never used it. That's not the atmosphere I operate in. It's just the atmosphere most of your company operates in. But you're so far removed from it. That's why sometimes you see people with a lot of power acting disgustingly. And you can see them in the media and they don't get it. They really, really think they're good people because they can't see it anymore.
Yeah, just kind of a blind and a tone deafness.
And those are the people that need to make the decision. Let's do this.
So there's a paradox here, Gil. I don't know if you hear it, but basically you're describing a disability amongst these so-called top people. They're blind and deaf to the fact that...
it's not just me. There's so much research showing, and I have a whole chapter about abusing power, which is such a widespread thing. And when you look at the statistics from the American market, the amount of people saying, I've been bullied at work, I've been harassed at work, it's most people, and nearly all people have been witness to it. Now, if you're witnessing bullying and you're not saying anything, then that also creates inner turmoil that you have to do something with, because the dissonance, cognitive dissonance it creates when you're seeing an injustice being done and you're not speaking out because you're afraid of your position.
Sure, the repercussions.
Basically, that would be it. And then you have a culture being created of tolerance to be treating people terribly, because the higher up you go, that's the norm. I never met Steve Jobs, but he was supposed to be brilliant on the one hand, and at least according to the media, quite a bully on the other, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's supposed to be quite a lot of people with very frayed psyches because of interactions with a bully. And I can't condone bullying. Doesn't matter how brilliant you are, doesn't give you license to hurt people.
Right.
I think bullying and physical abuse is not that much different. Physical will probably clear up quicker than the emotional harm that bullying does.
Sure.
And it's so prevalent in the workplace. And so is harassment. And so is gender disparity. And so is so many things that are so far away from social justice as you can get. And at some point, I realized that true, real social justice in this world will only happen if it starts out in the workplace, because that's where us adults go to provide and to make our dreams come true. And in that environment, that's where we spend most of our waking hours. And if day after day we go to workplaces where there is no social justice, because minorities are being treated unfairly, because there's so many various groups, it's not only disabled people who are not allowed into the workplace. They don't have nobody accepting them. There's no social justice there.
That one soundbite was so big. I just need to say it again. Social justice will only happen if it happens in the workplace. That's huge. There are so many surprises that you're bringing, including the importance of poking a hole in the idea that we have to engage in a stress interview. You're smashing idols right and left, which makes me so happy. You are being a true iconoclast, if you'll go with that metaphor. Can you share with me a little bit of some of the other things that you're kind of poking holes in, including the piece that surrounds your brilliant TED Talk about being nice during interviews, and that will actually give you a better prediction of how this particular population will perform?
I think there are many, many things in the world of business that are just done from a tradition standpoint, and nobody's really stood back and said, it doesn't make any sense. It's dumb when you think about it. So research showing, and I'll give a few examples, research showing that the regular traditional screening procedures, they can foretell about 8% of future successes. That's it.
So 8% prediction rate. That's it.
8%.
That's
right.
Yes.
And when you think about it, well, they're conducted so stupidly, because I look at work and employing as creating a long-lasting, mutually beneficial relationship between a workplace and a person.
Yes, for
The
sure.
workplace wants to see if this person is someone they want to move ahead for the long term with. And the person needs to know who the workplace is in order for them to decide if they want to move ahead with a long-term relationship. But if brands and corporates were in the world of dating, they would never get a second date. They would always be considered serious assholes. Because if you think about it, the way that these interviews are conducted is horrific.
Yeah.
There's a fog of war. You don't know what you're coming in for.
For
Right?
sure.
But I'm not the enemy. Why are you doing me the fog of war?
Why does it feel like around every corner I'm going to get shot?
Yeah, and you don't know anything. And it's so judgmental. And you can't ask anything. And everybody's acting as if the fact that we let you in so nicely. The rest is like, you're not going to get the rest, but the rest will be gravy. You're just going to get any gravy.
Right.
You're not told why you're not accepted. If you are not accepted, you don't meet people. You just meet like people who tell you what to do. They tell you nothing about themselves. 92% of adults say that they have various levels of anxiety when they go through that process.
Oh, I would imagine even higher, but yes.
7 people just didn't want to mention it. That's percent. Seriously. I mean,
Right.
right? So 92% of adults say it makes them anxious.
Sure.
And then there's so much research showing how anxiety hurts your executive functioning.
Right. We want
Your ability to be verbal, coherent, intelligent, engaging. The more anxious you are, most of us will perform way less.
we tend to choke under that
What
form.
reason could there be for corporations to invite people in whom they want to have a long-term mutual relationship, to see them at their worst and decide upon that, and to do it for most jobs that they have no anxiety and pressure inherently in them? It's not Navy SEAL
Yes.
screening.
I love that, by the way. Yes, you mentioned that in the TED Talk. And maybe for the Navy SEALs, yes. For most jobs, no.
Yeah. Then you say, but why are you conducting it that way? It's got nothing to do with their job. And people will say, well, we need to know how they react to pressure. But you guys work so hard to make people feel comfortable
Right.
during their jobs. And actually, they don't have that much pressure in their jobs because they're waiters or they're hosts. And it could be that there's like a table that's taking a bit longer, but I'm not sure that's the kind of pressure you guys are putting together
Right.
in that screening. So you won't really see who is sitting there. You'll just see how whoever's sitting there reacts to anxiety. Anxiety can lower lots of IQ points. I mean, a bunch of IQ points.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you're just screening for anxiety. Now, I've been contending that for a long time, but just a couple of years ago, Microsoft and a university put out a paper saying, yeah, we discovered that all our screening procedures for code writers, all they're doing is they're missing everybody who's good at writing code. They're just screening for people who are good with anxiety. They had like a bunch of males and females take these tests and none of the females passed. And when they gave them just a code, just to check that if they know how to work, they all passed. So Microsoft, like a year or two ago, maybe just had latched onto the idea, but maybe we're doing something wrong here with the screening. The screening is only one example. Throughout the whole life cycle of employees, we're getting it wrong. Everyone's getting it wrong. I'll give you 2 more examples. Training. To think that training should start on one date for 20 people and end on the same date for 20 people, you must be amazing that you have 20 identical people.
Totally streamlined.
Because if you haven't, then some of them will be over ready, some will be not ready, and maybe 1 or 2 will be ready. And you'll be losing the guys that aren't ready, and you'll be boring the guys that are ready. But that's how it's done. So that's how it's done. I've been an organizational consultant for quite a while before I started doing this. And every organization I went to, they said, yeah, when people come from training, we say, just forget what you learned in training. Now we'll teach you how to work. And I said, yeah, but why isn't confidence building an inherent part of training? I mean, don't you want people to finish training when they're confident that they can now succeed at their job? So they'll start confident and they'll join a team confident and not have the whole team going, now we have to break in another newbie, which will probably not make it. And we just don't want to do that again. So like, screw the newbie and then he'll figure it out himself. And that's stupid. Or for instance, the most important part of onboarding is social onboarding. Not having a nice flower on my table if I don't know who anyone is all around me. I'm the outsider. I want to feel connected. I want to feel part of a group. Do you mind if the group gets to know me and I get to know them? Could you do something about that so I'll feel confident earlier on? I'll feel welcome earlier on. It'll make me more productive. It'll bring me up to speed quicker. Nobody does that. Nobody manages confidence and training or social onboarding and onboarding. And I can give many other examples, but and they all have the same common denominator.
Which is?
Feelings. We're very good with the physical and we totally neglect the emotional. Now, I know you've interviewed my favorite psychologist out there, called Gil Winch.
He's amazing, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
I'm a fan.
He is. And he's got such strong and salient points. And the thing is that they don't only happen in private, they also happen at the workplace. What does it matter how plush the great chair you're sitting in, if while you're sitting in it, people are harassing you and your boss is belittling you and making you feel so small? Does it matter what a wonderful cafeteria you can go to drown your sorrows? No, it doesn't. Most people would prefer a stool and treated with respect.
Absolutely. Not just having a mug that says teamwork makes the dream work while they're being treated badly.
I know. And you see so many CEOs. And I was sitting with the CEO who brought me in to discuss values because he wanted to have the value of teamwork in the company.
For sure.
And I said, well, did you consult with the team? And he looked at me and said, why? I said,
oh my God.
I thought maybe because it's teamwork. He couldn't get it. He didn't see it.
It's unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Well, I'm so grateful to you for your time. Is there anything I should have asked but haven't yet? Because I have one final question. If not,
I want to talk about the book just for a minute, if I can.
Please, let's talk about your book.
Okay. So I was born, I think, naive in the sense of I really, really believe that you can fix injustices. And I'll tell you why I believe that. I believe that when we go to a movie and there's the good guy and the bad guy, at no stage would you find yourself explaining to your kids which is which.
Right.
We always know the good guy because he's doing the good things. And we always recognize the bad guy. He's doing the bad things. We can all tell what the good things are and what the bad things are. And because of that, I really, really feel that when there's a global injustice going on, and there is one going on, and it's in our workplaces, that the minute it's pointed out, people go, yeah, let's fix it. I know it's a naive thought, but I believe that. And in order to create such change, in order to allow disabled people and ex-cons and minorities and so many other people who are underdogs in the workplace, Black people in America need to send in twice as many resumes to get the same amount of interviews. Really? Yeah. With 100,000 employees, create that sort of vibe. That's the situation all over. So I wrote Winning with Underdogs in order to change that, in order to promote social justice in the workplace. And I think that if we do that, if we stop with the lip service and the actual fibs that so many brands are putting out there when it comes to diversity and their real practices and inclusion, and we figure that everybody needs to get into the workplace, not this group and then that group, because the minute you're leaving anybody out who's not institutionalized, then you're saying, well, yeah, some people shouldn't be in, and then we just need to decide who those are.
And you're saying
everybody should go into the workplace.
We need to be open to everyone.
Yes. And in order for that to happen, it won't happen with the current cold corporate culture that workplaces have. Not only is it keeping people with less confidence, and that's pretty much everybody who's been out of the workplace for a while, and less self-esteem out, it's also causing so much angst and emotional distress to people who are in. And research has been done showing that if we treated people differently in the workplace, their productivity would grow and everybody would learn so much more. But we have to do that. And in order to do that, we have to change pretty much how we operate in the workplace. We got to go back to the concept that served us for 200,000 years as Homo sapiens. And it's the only word never mentioned in management books. The word is caring. We provided within a tribe that cared for us. We could have fights, we could shout, we could have disagreements, but we basically provided every day amongst people that cared for us, knew us, and we were an integral and important part of that tribe. But for the past 200 years, we've been leaving home, working for people who don't know us, don't really care about us, and the amount of human misery that's brought. We've actually exchanged horrific physical labor, which we were doing 100 and 200 years ago, with horrific emotional labor. Because no one in farming 200 years ago had to give in an end of the week report. And why isn't this on my day? You finish the farming, you go home, there's quiet. But nowadays, so many people are upset in the workplace, and they should be, because they're treated totally with cold, uncaring, will cater to your physical needs, but forget about the emotional ones. We're not even going to pretend. And Winning with Underdogs is a book I wrote in order for that to change. And it talks about how it should change, why it should change, and how all of us can go about promoting that change. And I'd like to give just one example.
Of course.
Anybody listening to us, if you're willing, I'd love you to buy the book, but you don't have to. If you're willing to put in 15 seconds a day, we can create amazing change. And I describe exactly how that would happen. And I think I'm convincing to show that it can happen. For instance, if everybody uses a hashtag, disability labels, hashtag disability labels, asking for major brands on their homepage to have a label, just like we have a food label, so we know what we're eating. Nike, could I know what your disability actual results are, not what you presume to, what they are? And not only Black, Asians, Americans, Native Americans, other big populations that you never mention.
Right.
Ex-cons are such a huge problem in America. They don't have a job. They get thrown in prison for any stupid reason, and then they're out of prison with no job. Hire them, for God's sake. If Amazon has warehouse problems, you have millions of ex-cons who can't find a job. Why can you not hire them?
And I'm guessing that they're far less likely to go back to prison because they've got a purpose outside of prison.
Yes. But if Amazon had to tell us how many ex-cons, how many people with disabilities really work for them, do they have a gender wage disparity or not? If we got that information on hashtag diversity labels by law, because by the way, all the food companies, they all knew it's good for our consumers' health if we would put labels with what we're selling you, what you're going to eat. But they never did it until it was law, right?
Right.
They knew it was good for the customers. They all have in their values, no, we'll do what's best for our customers. No, you won't. You'll do what's best for maximum profit. You will not do what's best for your customers. So I don't want to really ask you guys. I want us, the rest of us, to demand from you guys, please show us your real diversity, the real diversity of your business as a law on your homepage, so I can decide if I want to buy from you or not. And if enough people would hashtag that, it'll happen. And the example I give in the book is New Coke. You're old enough to remember New Coke.
I do.
Right?
Yeah.
They spend Coca-Cola. Young people don't know. Coca-Cola decided to redo Coca-Cola.
Destroy the classic Coke.
Hundreds of millions of dollars, 200,000 tasting tests, years of publicity, and it took them 78 days to roll back. This was before internet, because of the outcry in America about this horrendous misdeed Coca-Cola did. So they invested hundreds of millions of dollars, and the outcry was such that within 3 months, they rolled back. No more New Coke for you people. We're back to classic. We don't need those many hashtags of the disability labels. If you do it once a day, that's 15 seconds. Just use it anywhere. If enough people do that, there's a voice. And because of the voice is asking for something that's really needed and will benefit everybody and is a real win-win-win, you won't be able to not listen to it eventually. If enough people just won't do that hashtag.
Fantastic. Gil, I am just so moved by who you are and what you're doing for society and with this precious life that we have. I mean, I'm just thinking about how meaningful it must be. I'm just so grateful to you for doing this and can't wait for the book to come out. I do encourage people to buy it. And
I try to make it really interesting with all sorts of aggravating statistics about who's cheating us and who isn't. The big brands, you can actually catch them. I caught them actually being naughty. Those sorts of,
Well, so great to meet you. May you continue to be good and continue to be naughty.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, it's a total pleasure.
This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.